Remember, knowledge, it ain't free. You gotta pay attention and don't believe the hype.
For over 150 years, the Kentucky Derby has stood as the most enduring tradition in American sports. And in our time, one stallion is reshaping its legacy. Back-to-back Derby winners. His first son at stud siring another. A dynasty in motion. A motion that again has forward momentum toward Louisville, with another elite crop of 3-year-olds bearing his genes. Spendthrift Farm, home of Into Mischief.
Remember, there are reasons that only very few people beat this game. Many reasons for that. One is you have to go against human nature and be willing to cash less tickets to win more money. You can't use everybody and their sister. You can't bet every race. You can't bet every track. You can't go after everything all over the place. You got to manage your money and pick your spots or you will get devoured.
In the Kentucky Derby.
For some, they say it's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. For us, it's about potential financial opportunities. Never bring a knife to a gunfight, and make no mistake, big money is up for grabs and this is a fight. Never settle for second best. The Past the Wire annual Kentucky Derby seminar. Nobody does it better. Preparation is key. Be better prepared, delve deeper, stealth. They won't see us coming and they won't know we're there. Money management, ticket structure, pace, all the intangibles, thoroughgraph, everything that matters to make it count, to have that edge. In the end, if things go as planned, it'll be like we stole the money. There's a lot of ways to handicap a horse race and a lot of ways to bet on it. But nobody that I know does it like Geo Sette and his full card, precise order handicap. Every horse in the race gets a predicted order of finish like only Geo can do, way beyond a deep dive, available exclusively on select days at Past the Wire.
Hey, what do you say, everybody? Mr. Sette here, Past the Wire TV. I'll tell you one thing. I'm happy that you joined me tonight for this show because I am pumped up and excited about going back to my New York roots, the Big A, Aqueduct. And when I say I got New York roots and I talk Aqueduct, I got a lot to share. So for those of you that are on the East Coast or spend time at Aqueduct, you will directly relate. I'm going to give you some fun stuff and maybe a story or two in the beginning. And ultimately, the agenda is we're covering the 4 big races on Saturday's card. They are specifically race 9, the Gazelle, race 10, the Carter, race 11, the Excelsior Stakes, and race 12, the Wood Memorial. And we're going to spend a good amount of time on each race, deep diving. I'm going to go over every horse. So that's the agenda. But let me talk to you about Aqueduct, first of all. Aqueduct, Jesus, have things changed over the years. And for you new horse players who only know what exists today, like, for example, if you're in your late teens, 20s, or even early 30s, maybe you don't understand the circumstances of New York racing, specifically at Aqueduct, going back to the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, late 80s, maybe into the 90s. But Aqueduct, it's not the same these days, but it's got a lot of history. So back in the 80s, big crowds, live crowds, no betting on your phone, no apps, no computers. If you couldn't make it to the track, you found a neighborhood OTB. And even at the OTBs, they're packed. They were smoke-filled rooms. And you know what? They didn't even have post-position numbers. They used letters. So you were playing a CD or a CA exacta or a ABC triple. How crazy is that? So, and you know what? In the OTBs, we didn't even have a TV to watch the race. And you couldn't even get a stretch call or a race call until August when they had the Saratoga race. But anyway, so being at the track at Aqueduct, whether it was on the main track or the inning track, had its own uniqueness. Again, big crowds, long lines. To be honest with you, I'm here for you to talk about the big card, the Wood Memorial card. I had to be in attendance, I kid you not, probably about 20 or 25 times for the Wood Memorial. So Mr. Sette is very seasoned in New York, and I'm pumped to get back to New York to go over these very special 4 races on Saturday. And you know what? I always embrace the opportunity. I look at it as a great opportunity for scores. And just one note, meteorologist Geo Sette is here to tell you that it's likely. And by the way, if you're a thoroughbred racing prognosticator, handicapper, fan, you always have to keep yourself in the loop of what the weather's going to be like, because obviously it's going to affect the track condition and the circumstances around the entire day. So I've been watching it very closely. Now, as I'm recording this, what's today? It's Wednesday. It's very likely that Saturday is going to be a very raw, mid to upper 40s type of chill, rainy, pissing on you type of day. If that's the case, and we get the rain that we may get, it's not going to be as much as the rain that they're going to have over potentially at Keeneland before Saturday, but it's likely to be an off track. So I have prepared my handicap to cover that, dug deep into the bloodlines, recognizing that, the circumstances could be wet, and it's something that I need to cover, and I've done that as part of my handicap. All right, so one other thing. I talked about the long lines and live at the track. If you've never seen this movie, I'm a movie buff too, but if you've never seen Joe Pesci and Rodney Dangerfield and Easy Money, I highly recommend it. There's horse racing scenes, but it's not a horse racing movie, but it's a funny movie. And one of the things that happens in the movie is they're waiting online to get a bet in, and there are people who are making bets online, but they don't know how to bet. They're too slow in their ways, or they're indecisive. That's what used to happen at Aqueduct as well. And, back in the day, for those that used to go to Aqueduct, early 80s, the $1 hot dogs and the Manhattan clam chowder, especially in the freezing cold days, they really hit the spot. And times have changed because it's not the same anymore there. Anyway, without further ado, let's continue to the task at hand. 4 big races, deep diving. These are races 9, 10, 11, and 12. Saturday at Aqueduct. Let's start breaking it down. We're going to start with race 9, which is the Grade 3 Gazelle Stakes. Okay. So of course these are fillies, and these are fillies that are 3-year-old fillies. So let me see how many horses there are on the field to start. We have 8. So let's start in post position order, and I'll give you my thoughts on each horse. And at the conclusion of the deep dive for the particular race, I'm going to give you the Sette precise order as I see it. You'll gather some notes and thoughts along the way in terms of the direction I'm going in. But, this way I could staple it, precise, how I land, who I'm going to use in the multiples, especially in the pick 5 or pick 3. It's good to know, okay? All right, so number 1 is late night call. The late night call path is interesting. From Laurel and Parks, Tyler Connor now stays for the third time, stretching out, and it's his first race versus winners after graduating for, versus a very suspect or average maiden special weight field. When I look at this gal just appears to be too slow. So I'm not going to spend as much time as I would on the others. Likely off the board. Do not like the one, and I won't recommend the one in this race. All right, let's move on to the 2. All right, the 2 is Ballerina d'Oro. Now, I have much more to say about this gal. Strong-looking daughter, great daughter of Medaglia d'Oro out of a Tappet mare. 3 promising races as a juvenile. They were all on the green. As you could see at Saratoga, Kentucky Downs, and Keeneland. I loved her race in the Grade 2 Demoiselle, second to Momina, who is a big filly out of the Brad Cox barn. And that was, his first dirt try. And if you could remember on Past the Wire shows, I liked her a lot that day, and I hit that exacta pretty strong. The first race at 3, making a comeback for this year's campaign, was pretty sharp in the Devonna Dale Grade 2 at Gulfstream. She was beaten by 2 really nice fillies in that race, in Macara and the Queen's MG, who in their own ways have won multiple races. So now she's making a second start at 3. Dylan Davis is up for Chad Brown. She's proven at the distance. And I feel, I'll tell you the truth, based on race review and looking over her entire body of work and campaign, she appears to be primed for her career best. I expect her to be flying late in this race. And I consider her a must-use in your pick 3s and pick 5s and basically all of your wagering opportunities. Very strong contender. One of my top 2 who I feel is very likely to emerge victorious in this race. All right, let's move on to the 3. All right, the 3 is Vanilla Sunday. Vanilla Sunday, first winners after graduating in her first race at 3. Of course, was over the track at the Big A. If you see on February 27th. However, a very, very small field of 5. So, when a horse wins in a field of 5, there's a little bit of an asterisk, especially if it's in a weak field in this maiden special weight. But she won by 15. She really drew off. She looks stronger in race review now at 3. And she's obviously faster on the bias scale. So if you look at the 2 juvenile races and then look at her first race at 3, you see a considerable change in her speed figures. That's something to take note of. It is the daughter of Gunrunner. You like seeing that type of bloodline connection. She's likely to move forward with this stretch out. May consider her in some of my bottom gimmicks. Don't like her as a win candidate. That's Vanilla Sunday. Let's go to the 4 early on. All right, early on, interesting. Comes out of the Virginia Oaks at Colonial Downs. Second to the filly Fondly, who ran a real strong race that day. Nice race. However, it came back somewhat slow. Castellano is new for Safi Joseph. Feels she's good for the distance. But to me, others appear to be more appealing in this race. What else can I tell you about early on? I like that she ran as a juvenile, beginning her career at Saratoga. You know, I think it's important to note she has a race in the wet at Aqueduct that she ran well in, finished second in that maiden tag, and then she later graduated. But, you know, coming from Colonial Downs just a couple weeks ago, I like others in this race. I'm not going to use early on, especially going forward. Let's move on to the 5. Now, the 5, I have a lot of interest in. All right. So first, let me go over some of my notes. And, you know, by the way, in terms of the notes, when you see me looking down, I wrote up my whole script that I'm sharing with you in this Past the Wire TV show. But I always wanted to make note of information I feel is really important for you to know. So if you see me glancing at my notes or on the screen, I want to make sure I cover things. So the 5 is D. Lorraine. Okay. Mike Smith up for Ian Hardy. Kind of like that pairing. Always respect Big Money Mike. This gal has a nice body of work, developing nicely, hit the board in 5 out of 6. A very interesting work on a synthetic over at Turfway Park on March 24th. 5 and 101 and 3. Remember that. Comes into this race off that work at Turfway Park on a synthetic. She hit the board in both of her dirt starts. I feel, based on the combination of past performances and what I've seen out of this filly in race review, I feel she's primed for a big race. I think she's coming to run here. To me, the strongest contender to Chad Brown's horse, who I spoke about earlier, which is Ballerina d'Oro, the 2. All right. So keep that in mind. She made my top 2 in terms of contenders. I might as well say right here, I think she's got a big shot at winning this race. I'm using 2 of them going forward. I have a tremendous amount of Ballerina d'Oro respect. But the reason why I'm starting with this gal at a potential price, by the way, I do not have the morning lines. I know this gal should get some respect, but why do I think she's primed for a big race? To me, she's got improving figures. Smith is a significant major upgrade as a rider for Godolphin Blue. This type of filly, I think, can race well regardless of the surface. So think of a path. The turf over at Ellis Park, the dirt at Indiana, the synthetic in her next race, lays off and now comes back as a 3-year-old, back on the lawn at Tampa, then on the dirt, then back on the lawn. You know, the campaign is interesting, and this is Godolphin Blue. Another thing to note, if it is wet and clammy out and sloppy or muddy, when I say a filly like this could run on any surface, I think she'll also take to the wet if it so happens to be nasty out there. So intriguing value to me, not knowing what her odds will be. I hope she gets sort of ignored at the window. We'll see that on race day, but I see the 5 as a big contender in this field. All right, let's move on to the 6. 6 is Diria. This is the daughter of Good Magic. Okay, so daughter of Good Magic, her path, Indiana as a juvenile. If you see those 2 races at Indiana, coincidentally, they were off the turf events. Maiden special. She graduated there. You know, And then she came, made her first start as a 3-year-old at Parks. Wasn't crazy about that field, took in a lot of money, and she didn't do much running at all. 6-horse field, finished way back. It's the form saying no response. She's overmatched here. You know, if she was ready to run as a 3-year-old, she would have shown lots more than the effort she displayed over at Parks. Works are not interesting to me. That's a toss for me. All right, the 7. 7 is pure beauty. Samuel Marin is up for Shug. Now, one thing about Samuel Marin, and I'll talk about Sam Marin a little in the race later on as well. You know, I knew the jockey had some talent when he was riding over at Monmouth down the Jersey Shore, and he's really developed. You know, what he's done at Tampa, he's showing that he knows how to win races, whether it's on the dirt or the turf. So he's not far from an elite, but he's an aggressive, confident rider. So keep that in mind going forward with Samuel Marin. So he's up for Shug. This is a filly that's an improving $435,000 daughter of Malibu Moon. I consider her an inviting contender in this race. Tell you why some more. She's training well. I trust Shug. You know, Shug McGahee's ability to point a horse in the right direction. You know, to put the horse in the best position to win. Stretching out in this race. Let's see. How much of a stretch out? Not much. Just going to 1 1/8 from a 1 16 at Gulfstream Park. So it's a slight stretch out. I'm going to use this gal exclusively in my exactas and my triples. I need to decide on race day, based on the track condition, if I'm going to say, you know what, maybe she can upset the field. But I like her to fill my exotics, but my top 2 are more appealing. All right, and the bottom horse is Liam in the Dusk. Turn the page to Liam in the Dusk. I thought it was pretty interesting that Rosario is up for Rudy Brisset. This filly kept nice company in 2024. You know, 24 as a juvenile. She was always bet aggressively. You know, she's only made that 1 start as a 3-year-old. So this is a second start at 3. But the first race at 3, Jesus, nothing to write home about. At Aqueduct, over the track, ran a very poor figure. Machado came in. Horse really didn't do nothing. Took all the money and sort of burnt it. Form says faulted. I couldn't find much of an excuse. But you know what? The barn must be respected. Rosario too. And the company she kept. Think about this. You know, her last race as a juvenile, Ballerina d'Oro's in that race with Momina. She ran 3rd to them. She ran with Immersive. She ran with Macara. She kept all that company as a juvenile. One would think that she's going to go forward as a 3-year-old. So it was perplexing to see her return to be so dull, but sometimes you got to give a horse an excuse. So with that said, that filly made my top 4. So considering that it may get wet out there, and I put those considerations have been used for all four of these races. My Gazelle, precise order of finish, and I'm going to use my top two in my pick 5 and my pick 3. I may choose to use a third, but my precise order is 5, 2, 7, 8. 5, 2, 7, 8. If you want to go further precise, it would be 5, 2, 7, 8, 6, 3, 4, 1. That's my full field precise order in the race 9 grade 3 Gazelle Stakes. All right, so we're ready to turn the page. Let's move on to race 10. And by the way, if you feel like you need to jot something down, or if you feel like I missed something that you're curious about, or if you want to make a comment on something that I mentioned, don't hesitate. Go to the comments, ask, and I'll probably, I find time in the evening to look back and see what people are saying, and I promise I will acknowledge your comment. All right? So now we're going to move over and move on. Let's see. Someone's texting me. Let me see who that is. Okay. Race 10, the grade 2 Carter. All right. Very interesting. 7 panels, 7 furlongs, $300,000 grade 2 Carter. Very intriguing 4-year-old and older race for all the horses. And how many horses we have in the race? We go up to 8. So I'm going to cover every horse 1 through 8, and we'll take it from here. All right. Number 1, Crazy Moon. Let's talk about Crazy Moon. Stretching out to 7 panels, Manny Franco is the new rider up for Greg Sacco, which is interesting. 2 for 2 in 2025, now at the age of 4, improving. When I say improving, I see that forward activity, forward movement in the horse. This guy faced nice company last spring at the age of 3, ran in the Tampa Bay Derby, most notable in that race against Domestic Product. Domestic Product went on to become a real nice winning horse. So not only did the horse run in the Tampa Bay Derby, but in the Sam F. Davis. Last 2 buyers have been the best in his career. That's something important now that he's 12 races in. So obviously on the right path. Now he faces many older, seasoned horses, but you have to list him as dangerous in this spot. Stepping into first grade 2 of his career. One of the notes I put here is that the horse is familiar with Aqueduct, and I see this guy to be one that will be flying in the stretch. So the pace I'm expecting should be accommodating, and I'm expecting this horse to make a big run in the stretch. Let's go to the 2. The 2 is Quince Brew. Quince Brew, all right. Quince Brew, Maryland bred. So this guy is a gelding coming in from Laurel. Ships in, jockey Michael Sanchez stays. You always like to see that. 2 for 2 at the distance and exactas, which I feel is an important indication. 7 furlongs, of course, is a unique distance. So if a horse runs that distance well, obviously it's something that he adapted to and he's very comfortable with. So 2 for 2 On the board at the distance, winning one. Loves it wet. 2 for 2 in the wet. Again, asterisk, because if it's going to be wet, you want to think about a horse that has managed his way and was successful in the wet. So distance in the wet, important stuff for this guy. To keep in mind whether it's sloppy or muddy on Saturday. He is consistent and reliable, 5 for 5 in exactas, winning 4, warrants respect, no doubt. Solid speed figures and should be in the mix all the way around. Very tactically sound, and I consider him to be a dangerous contender. And you know something? Michael Sanchez, you know, he's not a dog. You know, he cares, and he's a pretty good rider. All right, he just doesn't get the stage like this. So when a rider doesn't get the type of stage that he's used to, sometimes, you know, they step up and the race means that much more to them. Make sense? All right. Let's go to the 3. The 3 is Surveillance. Surveillance is one of those veteran campaigners, now at the tender age of 8. 4 consecutive seconds at the Big A. Think about that. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 consecutive seconds over the track at Aqueduct. You know, that's hard to do, but solid. However, has never won at the distance. 0 for 4, hit the board just one time. Of course, Lascano is up for Rice. We know about Linda Rice's success at Aqueduct, paired with Lascano. So, excuse me, there's a good chance they're going to be taking money this race. Horse that runs 4 seconds in a row, you would think is in good form. But you know what? When I watch those races, so yes, good form. But if you watch those races, to me, especially in 2 of them, he had every opportunity to win, but didn't get the job done. So stepping up into a grade 2, must respect, but to me, to be used in your deeper gimmicks, like your bottom end superfectors, I don't really see him as a win candidate in this race. You'll know that when I give you my precise order. Let's move on. The 4 is Full Moon Madness. Full Moon Madness. I like his races at Aqueduct. 7 for 9 in the money. However, he also hasn't won at 7 furlongs. 0 for 4 with 2 shows. But he has been a horse that has been very enamored with Aqueduct. If you look at his Aqueduct line, he's run 9 times. He's hit the board 7 times, winning 4 times. So that consistency over the surface sort of makes you gravitate towards him to dig down deeper and to look into more. He also has some races in the wet, winning on an off track and hitting the board in 2 out of 3. Racing well, no doubt, but in this race, others are simply more appealing. All in all, when I see a horse that should have won twice and didn't get the job done, he may be in a spot where he may tail off a bit here after those 4 seconds and he's stepping up. All right, let's go to the 5. Donegal Momentum. All right, now this is a double star for me. Let me give you my findings on this guy and pay close attention. Strong looking colt. I like to see that. He had that, you know, like an imposing type of look. $375,000 son of Uncle Mo, comes off 3 consecutive turf wins. And Castellano, again, is up for Tom Morley. Raced in the Hollywood Derby at Del Mar, going 2 back. Think about the horse that he raced with that day, run 3rd to. Formidable man. Now, if you guys follow the game closely, Formidable Man has been quite formidable. That horse is a real tiger in training right now. It's done really well. So when you keep that kind of company, regardless of the surface, it's pretty special. This guy made his 4-year-old debut at the fairgrounds after having all those races last year, the last 3 on the turf, and again on the lawn at the fairgrounds. So now you have to turn, think about the campaign. The 4-year-old debut remained on the turf, went to fairgrounds, ran a nice number, sat a good trip, took in all the money, and won. Nice race. So then I said to myself, let me look into the workouts, because that was, about 3.5 weeks ago. And I like the works. I like going turf to dirt. I think this guy is primed for a big race here. Should again sit a nice trip. Consider must use on all your tickets. I'm expecting him to move forward. I also like him if it turns up wet, because the one time Donegal Momentum had the wet, if you go back, it was at Aqueduct, graduating, running a big number, took in all the money that day, and Castellano was up. So the 5 in this race, I'll give you my precise at the end, but he became my top choice. I really like his chances. Mr. Sette's going to make a nice win wager on him, regardless of the surface. Have no problem with it being wet. I just like his campaign. So must use Donegal Momentum, top choice. Let's go to the 6. Dilger. Now, Dilger, whenever I see a race with Safi Joseph in it, trainer, I gotta, dissect it even more, because sometimes, the angle going from the optional claimer, a lowest seeded race, into a grade 2 like here, I gotta see if there's a reach or if there's something that, deserves merit. I couldn't find any. Of course, I have great respect for Dylan Davis. Dylan Davis is new, up for Safi. Intriguing that it's his first time riding for the guy. He's also facing older horses here. He's also proven at 7 furlongs, which I'm repeating myself, but when you're good at a particular distance like 7 furlongs, it needs to be noted, because it's a special distance. And the horse is 2 for 2 at 7 panels. Didn't win, but he hit the board both times. But you know what? If I'm going to use him, because I like Dylan Davis, he's going to be well underneath, maybe to catch 4th in the superfecta. But on the win end, the others are just much more appealing. Let me move my screen up here. Yeah, so the horse has some tactical ability, but I just think it's too much of an ask. And, if I'm going to use Dilger, it's going to be in the bottom level of a superfecta saver. All right, let's move on to the 7, Maximus Meridius. Maximus Meridius a quality Pennsylvania bred who has run with some strong horses. Also at the age 4, Joao Rosario is up for Robert Reed. That's pretty intriguing too. In race review, he's a hard-hitting gelding. He's got the tenacity that you look for, you know, that guts, that grit, and he likes Aqueduct. So that's a plus. Numerous pluses. And then probably the most important plus in this race is that if it's wet, he's a stronger option. I have great respect for this guy, but will side with him more in my underneath opportunities. But this is a case where you got to watch the board. Pennsylvania bred, open company, going into a grade 2. If it's really nasty out there, listen, the horse is 4 for 5 at the Big A and has won 3 of 5 races on an off track. You got to watch the board to see the type of attention that he gets. You'll know where I have him in my full, precise order, but I am telling you, move him up a notch, maybe even 2 notches if it's really nasty out there, and it could quite possibly be. But, you know, I'm going to give you my precise at the end, and you'll see where I have him listed. The 8, the bottom horse, Sheriff Bianco. Now, this is another hard-hitting, now 7 years old. I like those hard hitters. I like those campaigners that, you know, continue to compete, those strong geldings that give you an honest race quite often. So, Sheriff Bianco, clearly a veteran, New York bred, I say 7 or 8. 7. Just won at the distance with Ruben Silvera, state bred stake event. You know, it's Linda Rice. You know how successful Linda Rice's barn is. So keep that in mind. Is this the race she has another horse in? Let me just do a quick reference to that. No, that was last race, I believe. No, she's got Surveillance in the race too. I was right. All right, so this horse is the better of the 2 Linda Rice horses in the race, in my opinion. 18 for 23 in the money at the Big A. That's pretty impressive. 18 for 23, and you hit the board and you collect the check. But this is just a taller task at hand. Because he has so many races in his career, you would think he has races over the off track, and he does. So, veteran campaigner, comes off that big win, but grade 2 Carter, I think, is a bit of a reach. You're probably going to get a sort of like an underlay price because it's Linda Rice, and in my opinion, the better of the 2 Rice horses in this race. So, you know, again, more so in bottom wagering opportunities. So the Geo Sette, grade 2 Carter, race 10, precise order is 5128. 5128. Donical Momentum, Crazy Moon. I'm going to play that exacta aggressively. Quince Brew, the Maryland bred, and the horse I just spoke about, the 8, Sheriff Bianco. 5128. If you want the full grade, it's 5128 and 743. All right? Race 10 in the books. Let me get a sip of Aqua Frisch. I hope you guys are keeping up with me. Let me move over to the next race on my screen. You know, I'm such an old school notes guy. I'm trying to get used to having the screen because right there, I got a giant screen with the PDF, you know, DRF, past performances right in front of me, but I got to go by my notes. because that's what you guys need to know. You need to know the information that I uncovered. All right. All right. Very, very interesting. All the races are interesting, but this is really going old school Aqueduct. 1.25 miles, Excelsior Stakes, race 11. That's old school Aqueduct. I like going 1.25 miles because, how many times you see those races anymore in NYRA? You don't see many of them. You see them more on the turf than you do on the dirt. So that's why I'm labeling it old school. All right, a lot of notes here. The one is Film Star. All right. Let me know in the comments if I'm moving too fast for you, and next time I'll slow it down if I need to. But number one is Film Star. This guy's overall body of work has been productive. Jose Lascano is up for Linda Rice, so you have another Linda Rice runner in the very next race. And that combo will always get your attention on the NYRA circuit. He's got nice speed and has run some solid races in the distance. He's in the right field, in my opinion. However, others in the race have classier resumes. Pace is definitely a factor for sure here. Not sure he'll be as strong in the final eighth, and can only recommend this guy in deeper gimmicks for a share. One other thing to note, first race in his new 6-year-old campaign was January 25th. Beaten by 2 in this race. Felt like he regressed a little from his prior race at Laurel in December. There's a chance he'll move forward, but like I said, others are more appealing on the win end. The consideration to use this guy in your deeper. When I say deeper gimmicks, those are the bottom level or secondary superfectors. Remember, if there's a horse who I will eliminate from my wagering consideration, I'll let you know if they don't make anything. But obviously the meat and the potatoes is my top 4 or top 5. And I'll let you know how many horses I'm going to use in my multiples, like the pick 5 or pick 3. All right. And of course, you know who my top choice is, who I like the most. Okay. And for those who order the precise order handicaps and know the way or understand my language, I usually recognize that in a win probability percentage that correlates with my precise order finish. All right. So the 2 horse here, Classic Catch. Let me move forward to Classic Catch. Classic Catch. This guy from the Todd Pletcher stable. I like the jockey change to Castellano. He now gets blinkers. So I trust Todd on that move. And he certainly is built for the distance. I consider this guy a contender, especially if he fires his very best. He's now making his 3rd start at the age of 5. He's got some back class and some very strong races. He ran in the 2023 Wood Memorial, and later on that year in the Peter Pan at Saratoga. He's training well, and I feel Castellano is the right jockey here. He'll definitely engineer what could be a quality trip in this spot. To me, an obvious dangerous contender, because I feel he's really going to be flying in a stretch. All right. So if it's wet, thumbs up. 3 for 3 in the money in the wet. He hasn't won, but those are strong races. Blinkers on. His numbers are right there with the rest in the field. And think about the jockey changes and path of this horse. BJ Hernandez, Johnny V, Dylan Davis, and Carmouche in the last, and now you get Castellano. So when Castellano gets on a horse for the first time, at least from my experience, he does a good job. All right. So let's move on to Batten Down. Now, Batten Down, many of you should be familiar with this guy's name. Solid colt. He's making his second start at 4 for Bill Mott. I like to switch to Joao Rosario. By the way, it's going to be a very interesting day for Joao Rosario because one thing about Rosario, the skill is there. It's a Hall of Famer. But probably over the last 3 or 4 years, sometimes there's an issue with consistency. You know, I don't know if he's spending too much time out at night. I don't want to assume things, but when he's ready to go and he's focused, he's strong on Rosario. And other times he just seems to not be the same. Let's hope we get the good Rosario on Saturday. So Rosario's up for Bill Mott. Juddmonte Colt was very active during the 3-year-old campaign. That's why I feel you'll know his name. He won the Ohio Derby, but then had to deal with the very best of the best 3-year-olds at Saratoga. Look no further than Fierceness, Sierra Leone, and Torpedo Anna. This is the son of Tappet, and obviously, because of what I just mentioned, the company he kept, he's the class of the race. So being the class of the race, in my opinion, matched up in this field at this distance, he's the most likely winner. He should find his winning ways again. I'm expecting him to get a patient, smart, crafty, intelligent ride from Rosario. He could command the lead or sit off it in a stalking position. That's something that Rosario will have to be decisive with after the break. I'm going to be playing a nice exactor in this race because I like the race. I love his chances here. Must respect, in my opinion, he should be used in all your tickets. He's the most likely winner. Top choice, Batten Down. You'll know more about my exactor and my triple as we go on. And like I said, as I'm speaking about a horse, you'll know, based on what I'm sharing, how I'm probably going to use him. Okay? The 4 is Krupe. Krupe is another guy that many of you are familiar with. Second entry for the Pletcher stable. He's been great at Aqueduct, hitting the board in 7 of 8 races. He's got that type of closing punch, that acceleration you want to see in a long race like this, late in the race. However, he does leave himself often with a lot of work to do. He too has run races with classier company. But sometimes you got to make adjustments. You can't be left, with so much to do all the time. So Dylan Davis is up for the second time. I like that. I always like a returning jockey, and I'm a big fan of Dylan. Maybe, just maybe, he won't have as much work to do this time. Not that he has to be on the pace, but he just can't be, as far back as he has often in races. I'm playing a strong exactor in this race and a strong triple. This guy should be used in your triples and superfectas. I just know that the 2 horses that I'm going to side with stronger, who I'm going to use going forward, will be Batten Down and the 2 Classic Catch for all the reasons I mentioned. But I got to make a game time decision based on a track condition if I'm going to go forward with Krupe, possibly going 3 deep in this race. But triple superfecta, no doubt. Maybe in the exacta, but my main exacta is going to be 32 here, Batten Down over Classic Catch. But let's go over the rest of the field. I'm getting a little too further for myself here. The 5, sorry if I'm blocking myself when I go to change. Very quick with this. The 5 is Curbstone, Not a fan. He's a horse for the course. 5 wins at Aqueduct opens your eyes. 5 out of 11. 7 exactas in 11 races at Aqueduct. Horse for the course. And he does like it wet. 2 for 2 in the wet. However, he's an outsider in this race. I just see him overall to be inferior to several in the race. So I am passing on him entirely. If he wins, Mr. Sette loses. If he hits the board, Mr. Sette loses. That's the 5, Curbstone. All right, let's go to the 6. Philly is Fog. Let me get that on my screen. Philly is Fog. Respect the connections. This is a speedy gelding who is stretching out here. He did run huge 2 back over this track in the slop, going 9 panels. So it's a stretch out, but in his last at Aqueduct in the slop, that's a strong race. Coincidentally, running second to Curbstone and defeating Film Star. But he came back for his first race at 5 and just missed. Took all the money that day, too. He just got caught. I feel we try to make the lead and take this field wire to wire. So based on the whole makeup of this particular race, I think he's the most likely pace setter. I know the way Kendrick Carmouche rides at Aqueduct, and it's just going to be an opportunity where he's going to run and gun him. Hopefully he has moderate fractions, and hopefully he doesn't get caught. In my opinion, I think he will get caught. I think there will be others pressing. I don't see it as a methodical pace. It won't be sizzling, but I like this race to be won from behind. Deeper gimmicks, superfecta threat. I don't think he's good enough to beat this field. That's the 6. Philly's Fog. Philly is Fog. All right, let's move to the 7. 7 is Mama's Gold. Mama's Gold. I liked a lot of things about this guy because, again, that grit and the guts. He's a New York bred. How old is he? 5 years old now. He's another horse that's run his best races here at Aqueduct. 6 wins over the track, 9 exactas in 18 races. So whenever you're in the exacta 9 times in 18 races, it makes you think a little of the horse being a performer. But I don't like him to win here. He's overmatched. It's not a graded high-level race, but there's some very consistent horses in this race who are more primed for a big one at the distance. Only going to use him because of his success at Aqueduct and success in the wet, and maybe some deeper gimmicks and superfectas. By the way, when you hear me talk superfectas, let me make it clear. You read the board. When I go precise, my top 4, I'm playing my cold superfecta first. That ticket's in the bid, even if it's for $1 or $2. Because if I'm right, I'm getting paid. But if I'm strong on my top choice, then I follow up my cold straight superfecta ticket with a superfecta key, or I take my top 2 and I put the next 3 underneath, because I don't want to lose a superfecta opportunity by a neck, nose, or head. You get the picture. So I love the superfecta key if the odds on the board warrant you to do so, because you don't want to lose a superfecta opportunity, especially one that's going to pay nice, because you only went cold, especially if the odds on the board. If I have 2 horses, for example, not associated with this race, but if I have a horse that's 6-1 and 2 others that are 15-1 or better and made my handicap, then it's really important to know that if you feel they're good enough to hit the board, then have that key into place, because you got your precise already. If you hit your key, by default, you hit your precise. Now you win it twice. Start making some scuttle. All right, let's go to the bottom horse. The 8, Mass Mac. Now, I have some things to say about Mass Mac, as I do everybody, but this guy, contender in the race. I like the way the guy is training. He's stepping into stakes competition for the first time. Manny Franco's up for Rick Dutrow. He's coming in near perfect from winning 4 out of 5. You know, when you win 4 out of your last 5 races, it's a head turner. Nearly perfect. Nearly perfect at Aqueduct. 5 races running to Big A, 5 exactas, winning 4. It's hard to go past near perfection, right? So he relishes on the surface at Aqueduct. He is the son of Vino Rosso. If you remember Vino Rosso, big-time horse, won the Breeders' Cup Classic, made for the distance, so I have no reservations about the distance. Should close well in this field. I don't think you can ignore this guy completely. I feel he will move forward again off his last, and he's being, from a good barn, a solid trainer with Manny Franco, who knows the track well. He's being ambitiously entered into this race, and he fits with them. No doubt he could win. Now, horses aren't machines. He's won 4 out of his last 5, and others appear more appealing to me, but must be considered. And I'm going to be using him in various wagering opportunities, especially my triples. So I've covered the Excelsior. As we move forward, the Sette, precise order. Write it down. 3, 2, 4, 8. If you want me to give you the whole field grade, it's 3, 2, 4, 8, 6, 1, 7, 5. So remember, I'm going to play the 3, my top choice, batten down. I'm going to play him the win. I'm playing my cold exacta. I'm playing my cold triple. And I'm playing my cold superfecta. However, inclusive with that, I'm going to use the 3 over the 2, 4, 8, 6, 1, especially if the odds on the board tell me to do so in the superfecta key. Remember, recognizing overlays and underlays, they're just essentially important. And the reason why I'm really good at it, and I'm confident about it, because 90% of my handicapping I do without the use of the posted morning line, because Mr. Sette never needs it. Do I notice it afterwards? Absolutely. But I make my morning lines. I make the decisions on race day. And based on my handicap, and if you're following me, and based on what you're going to do, and if you're your own handicap, you should consider that as well. But I make determinations as to what I believe are horses who are underlays and horses who are overlays. Yes, you could correlate that with the actual morning line on the board and what the public's doing, but it matters more to my own level of work and research and my own handicap. We took care of 3 of the 4. Now we're going to move forward with the race that everybody nationally is going to be looking at, watching, hyping, and recognizing. It happens to be the 100th, not 50, not 70, but 100 years now, a century of wood memorials. Now, I'll tell you a wood memorial story first. I like to share stuff like this because I'm one of those guys that goes really back, way before past the wire, into the early 80s. So in 1981, the Wood Memorial winner was Pleasant Colony. Now, if you're a racing historian, the name will come up just like that. So Pleasant Colony, and I was there, Mr. Sette, in attendance. As I've been in another I don't know the exact amount, maybe another 20, 25 Wood Memorials, because born and raised in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, spending many years, in Sheepshead Bay, getting in the car or hatching a ride from someone, steaming to Aqueduct, which is 20 minutes up the Belt Parkway, providing there was no traffic. And even when there was traffic, we sort of skimmed around traffic. This way we could make post time and got there without any added stresses. So Pleasant Colony was trained by the very charismatic, fun trainer, Johnny Campo. Back in the day, Johnny Campo was just a ton of fun to listen to. And he was written by Jorge Velasquez. So in the Wood Memorial, Pleasant Colony ran down Cure the Blues. Crazy pace. I looked this up, but I knew it was a fast pace. 21:45 in the Wood Memorial back then. Man, would it be interesting if they go 21:45 on Saturday. But suicidal pace, ran them all down. Actually, I was ahead of myself. He went to the Kentucky Derby, and that was the pace in the Kentucky Derby. I just checked out my notes. So Pleasant Colony won the Wood for Johnny Campo, went to the Kentucky Derby, ran them all down. The pace in the Kentucky Derby was a sizzling, suicidal 21:45. Then he went on to win the Preakness. It wasn't as fast, but again, ran down the whole field. Sure enough, heavily bet, heavily favored, Triple Crown opportunity in the Belmont Stakes. And it was back then, and I attended the Belmont Stakes that year. Oh, no, excuse me. Yes, I did. And Summing, a horse from the past, Summing pulled off the upset, and Pleasant Colony did not emerge a Triple Crown winner. But I wanted to pick one of the Wood Memorials just to share a little history. Sorry if I took a couple more minutes of your time, but I was there, a lot of fun. And if you're interested in watching those 3 races, go ahead, because Johnny Campo was a lot of fun back in the day. And the horse was a great horse. That was 1981. In 1981, Mr. Sette was at the tender age of 18. All right. So, one more piece of history. The Wood Memorial and Geo Sette, since he's been at passed away. Now, I had mentioned this, I believe, in my promo video about this show, that I have had an insane amount of success with the Wood Memorial. And look no further than the last 2 years. Now, of course, I'm speaking the truth, but if you want to go back to the tape and watch the Past the Wire shows, all my postings for the Wood Memorial back in 23 and 24, please feel free to do so. So in 2023, wasn't my top choice, but I played Dreamlike, Lord Miles, and Hit Show in the 2023 Wood Memorial. And if you watch that race, it was a dogfight to the wire. There was a steward's inquiry. They were looking at the replays. But ultimately, noses apart at the wire, Lord Miles at 59-1 won the race for Safi Joseph, paid $120 in an exacta over Hit Show. And with Dreamlike on the board, Mr. Sette nailed that exacta. And I had Lord Miles in my multiples. Very, very profitable Wood Memorial for me. All 3 horses made my handicap. All 3 horses were at the wire together. But even sicker was a year later. Last year, 2024, the Wood Memorial on Past the Wire. If you go back to the tape and watch the show, I was very high on Society Man. Society Man, was a horse I thought was a big threat to upset the field. Believe it or not, I didn't think he was going to be this price when I provided my show, but he went off at 106-1. 106-1, totally ignored, and ran second to Resilience, who I gave high regard for, and Mr. Sette hit the exacta. So, and the exacta paid, if I remember the exact amount, I should have had it for $20. I had it for $5 because I played some bigger exactas with Dreamlike on top. But I hit the exacta. It paid like $765, and I had it 2.5 times. I should have had it more times, but I got to refresh my screen here. Hold on a second. Okay. So with that said, a lot of success in the Wood Memorial. Let's start going over the deep dive for this big race. And trust me, I'm going to make some points on some horses that not many people have shared yet. You know what? I'm such a racing fan, and I value the opinion of some others. Sometimes I watch others who I respect, not those I don't respect, because I know who actually handicaps for a length period of time, you know, race review, past performances, really digs down deep, and I know who don't, and I recognize that, not mentioning any names, but I pay my observations as well, just like they're probably watching some of my work, and I know you guys know where I'm coming from, all right? Because you're watching this show here on Past the Wire TV. So let's dig down deep into the 2025 Wood Memorial. Let's hope we can go 3 years in a row with some solid success. And coincidentally, I have a couple in this race that may hit the board at a what could be a very generous price, at least the way I'm seeing the board to be established as the wagering moves forward closer to post time. All right, so we have a field of 12. Thank God it's a full field, which may very well open a door for what could be some strong mutuals. And remember this, another thing I wanted to mention, I'm going back, but you know, the entries or the past performances were available, was like late Sunday night. I started to see some handicappers put their show out there for the Wood Memorial on Sunday night or early Monday morning. I said, how is that possible? How much work could they have done? That's giving me an indication that maybe they're not as thorough with their process, but that's their choice. We all make choices. But anyway, let's proceed. Very, very, very intriguing horse on the rail. And I'm going to make some very important points to you here. Number one is Rodriguez. Okay. Now, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a very deep, precise order. Coincidentally, and I have to put an asterisk here because it's important that you understand, okay? As a handicapper in a race like this, a field of 12, the likeliness for an off track, numerous horses in this race have demonstrated good quality, tactical speed. So we have to work on what we feel is the likely pace scenario. So I'm expecting this race to be high level, moderate to fast. It may not be as sizzling as what we saw in the Arkansas Derby with Speed King and Cornucopian, but it could happen. Regardless, I am expecting the pace of this race. And if it's sloppy or muddy, just understand what happens with these horses on the lead. They're kicking back a lot of mud and dirt, and that's something that you have to put into consideration as you handicap in the race. So with Rodriguez, the first horse I'm going to talk about the asterisk after I give you some facts. So you got Big Money Mike Smith on this guy from the rail. Blinkers off. Bob Baffert brings this horse from California to New York. We all know Bob's capability and his reputation. Now, keep in mind, he brought Getaway Car to the Virginia Derby, took all the money. It was a one-turn event, Virginia Derby at Colonial Downs. Took all the money. Now, that horse is a small horse. When I saw that horse in the stretch next to the eventual winner, American Promise, Jesus Christ, I said to myself, I can't believe that the horse is that much smaller than another horse in a race. But when American Promise went right by him, it just looked like he had, I don't know, it could have been a couple 100 pounds on him. So he tried doing it with Getaway Car, took all the money, and Getaway Car faulted, just managed fourth at what he was. He was like 4 to 5. So Bob is bringing in Rodriguez here. Blinkers off. No doubt kept sensational company in his races at California. All you have to do is look at his body of work. And who do you see? You see Citizens Bull, Kentucky Derby horse, World of Speed, Magadet Road, Journalism, the very likely Kentucky Derby favorite. Bonds, we know how good, how well Bonds is bred, how expensive he costs, and how fast he is. So we know about the company. We know that Bob brought him into New York, and we know he's fast. And we know it's likely to be an off track. Now, may not be. Maybe we're blessed with a beautiful day, just clouds. It's going to be raw and chilly, but it's likely to be an off track. It could be soupy, sloppy, or it could be muddy, but it's likely to be a very damp, dreary type of chilly day. Now, one of the things I'm looking to mention here, which I think is essentially important, is that Rodriguez, in his 4 career starts, these are the field size, 6.655, 6.655. All of a sudden, bang, he's in a field of 12. That stuff is important because even though he's a front runner, the magnitude of the race, the horse is entering new grounds. He's facing 11 opponents, not 4 or 5. So the reason why this race is an asterisk, if others who I'm going to get to do not get out like they should, meaning others don't demonstrate the speed that as a handicap I'm expecting them to, and if Rodriguez gets out, which I do expect him to, with Big Money Mike, and he doesn't got that name because he loses races. He's a classy, veteran, world-class jockey. He knows how to race a horse on the front end. If Rodriguez does get out and others fail, no doubt he can go wire to wire, especially on the off track, which he hasn't seen. But the fact that he's fast and to be kicking mud and slop and gook up at the others, if they come closer, that's an important factor. So I had to mention that because this could be a rare occasion that my savor is, what if he does get that sort of opportunity and others fail and he can wire? I, as a bettor, I got to keep that in mind. So you may think it as a hedge. No, it's me recognizing that I can't get beat by him, but he's listed 5th in my handicap, in my precise order, because I do expect a fast pace. I do expect him to have company, and I do expect that the conditions could get to him and the size of the field could get to him. So that's my approach to Rodriguez. I need a sip of Aqua Felice. Hold on. I gave you a mouthful with him because I had to make myself clear, because that's how I approach the race. Okay? He's 5th in my precise order, but I know he can beat me if he gets the right circumstances that happen, and I have to protect against that happening to me. Do I use them in the pick five? That's a business decision I have to make as to how the day's going. Maybe on one ticket, but not on my smaller ticket where I go stronger. All right, let's move forward because I got a lot to say about this race. The 2 is Captain Cook. Rick Dutrow got this horse from Norm Cassie. He's won 2 straight. He's shined bright in the withers, at the distance, and he's now been off for 8 weeks. He won big graduating in the slop over the track too. Bred to win for sure. $410,000 son of Practical Joke out of an Indian Charlie mare. Unbeaten at the Big A and is likely to sit a big trip here. So to elaborate on my notes, which in the raw, Mr. said he typed out that I didn't want to leave out. Franco knows the oval. If you look at Practical Joke, yeah, you may say this could be a little too much distance, but he's already won at the distance and over the track. His buyers have gone from a 71 to an 83 to a 94. It would be wrong to say that he's not a contender in this race. He made my handicap, but since I'm giving out my precise order as I go along, he's going to be my 4th choice on the grid. Okay? And I'll definitely consider using him in some wagering opportunities, especially triples and superfectas. But I do like 3 others that to me have more appeal as I move forward to wager on this race. The 3 is Tiger 24, maiden special weight to grade 2, ambitiously entered for Bill Mott. Whenever you see a horse go from maiden special, skipping so much more, and say, hey, let's go for the gusto. Let's make the Kentucky Derby. Let's enter him in the Wood Memorial grade 2, a $750,000 purse race. However, I like Castellano, new for Mott. Obviously, Junior Alvarado is on the shelf, injured. But overall, in race review and in past performances, I see him as a cut below. I think this horse will develop. He's one to put on your calendar as the months go on. As a 3-year-old, that could get better. Siding with many others in this race, I will not be using the 3, Tiger 24. Let's go to the 4 horse, Maya Moltowi. Luis Rivera for Carlos Martin. There's an old school name, Carlos Martin. You know, the Martins in New York have always made their name. Blinkers on. You know what? But looks overmatched. Ran evenly after brushing the gate, the Gotham. Is he eligible to improve? Yeah. However, I'm siding with many others in the race. I will not be using the 4 on my tickets. Clever Mood, blinkers on. You know, and by the way, the Dam was a seeking the gold bloodline. It could take the slop if it's sloppy out there, and maybe a price. But you know, can't hug all the boys. You can't kiss all the girls. I am not using my Moltowi in my wagering opportunities. Let's go over to the 5. I tell you, as this race goes on, so many intriguing aspects in this very competitive Wood Memorial field. That's why the board is going to be very, very interesting, because so many things can happen and there could be some robust prices up there. Surprised that the morning lines, and recording this late Wednesday, David with DRF hasn't put the morning lines up. I guess he's waiting on an added weather report, but I thought they'd be up by now. But I have my morning lines. The 5 is Sun Devil. Nice looking colt. Boscano up for Linda Rice, who we've spoken about in the other races. Now, Linda Rice in New York, always a threat, always have to respect. However, let me give you my notes on Sun Devil. Stretching out again, has solid figures, no doubt. On the bias scale, 82, 90, 93, 92. New York bred. You know, whenever you're working with a New York bred, you want to see two things. Obviously, you want to see success and undeniable success in the New York bred races, but then his success transformed into the open company Gotham, where, you know, stumbled, wasn't too much of a stumble. Let me go to my notes here. So Flood Zone caught up to him, took the lead, and just took over and was much the best that day. I looked at the stumble because the form says stumble. I didn't think it was that much of a stumble. It was like a hiccup at the start. But the horse ran game. Horse was willing. Strong second to a horse that went away and took all the money that day. So 4 for 4 in the exactas. Can't argue with success. 4 races at Aqueduct. Granted, 3 was state bred, then 1 in the open company. 3 wins, 4 for 4 in the exactas. Something like that, you have to respect. You have to at least acknowledge it. Now, am I using this horse? Probably not. Probably only in deeper superfectas. Didn't make my top 5. So ultimately, that horse, although I respect the numbers, has to prove that he's good enough to win this race against this field. Unknown in the wet, don't know, didn't have much of a thought process with him. So that's a wild card as to how he'll adapt to the wet surface if it should be sloppy or muddy on race day. All right, 6, Hill Road. Lots to talk about this guy because in this race, I come up with a very strong top 3, and my top 2 was very compelling, but all 3 horses in my top 3, I feel, are the best 3 in the race who have an opportunity to win here. And Mr. Sette's only going to use his top 3 in his pick 5, main pick 5. Remember what I said about Rodriguez? It's important to note, but keep that in consideration in terms of how you structure your tickets, at least if you're following all that I'm sharing here. Hill Road, training well. So I like a horse that has the look of a horse that's training well because I know he's likely to move forward. I think he needed his last in the Tampa Bay race. He didn't have his best that day. No pace was in front of him either. I'm looking for him to be primed for not only a strong effort, but now at the age of 3, it could be his best race yet. Rosario up for Chad Brown. We talked about Rosario. We know his history. Hopefully this is a plus Rosario day. You know, Chad, I would love to see this guy in the Kentucky Derby. You win here, you will be in the gate at the Kentucky Derby. I have no reservations whatsoever about the distance. The bloodlines say yes. Then, you know, after his turf starts overseas, he's proven irrefutably that he's built for the dirt. He'll be flying late. If that pace is moderate, high level moderate to fast, if I had to predict what the pace will be, 1/4.5, I'm going to tell you, if it's dry, 23:47 and change, maybe high 46. And if it's sloppy, wet, icky, damp, 22 change. and definitely below 47 at the half. Maybe even in the high 45s. It could happen. The low 46s as a half could be inevitable if it's wet, because you're taking into you got to take into the effect of the horse with the momentum gobbling up ground, running through all that soup and sloppy surface. So many horses run faster in a slop than they do on a fast track, if that makes sense. At least it is to me in race review. All right, so proven on the dirt, he'll be flying late, dangerous contender for the top spot with his best effort. If he runs his absolute best, he's the most likely winner. I do like 3 in the race, and by default, because it's Chad Brown and I trust Rosario, I listed him as my top choice. However, in this race, my top choice in terms of the Geo Sette precise order win probability, he's my top choice, but the win probability did not reach 80%. I have him at somewhere in the area of 75 to 80% of a win probability in this field. By the way, Rosario has won this race twice before, and of course, because of his history in New York, he knows the Aqueduct Oval very well. He won this race on Mo Donegal, and he won this race with Frosted. 2 really good horses. I looked that up, so I had the information to share that. So he's looking to win his 3rd Wood Memorial. Let's go to the 7. 7 is a horse that really made me heighten my level of intrigueness. Is that a word, intrigueness? I was very intrigued because I have great respect. Here's why. Dylan Davis is now new for Todd Pletcher. Johnny V, of course, is out of town. I would have liked Johnny V on this horse, but Dylan Davis getting the spotlight. I'm a fan of Dylan. I know he's going to give it his very, very best in a race that's nationally recognized like the Wood Memorial. So Dylan Davis is up for Todd Pletcher. $300,000 son of Curlin. Need I say more? Curlin, 2-time horse of the year, major league built for the distance. He's out of a Warfront mare. He's already 2 for 2. So if you watch those races and you study him like I did, debuts a mile at Gulfstream, stretches out, wins at this distance, 1.1 miles. So both races at Gulfstream, I felt the fields were average to okay, not spectacular fields. However, both impressive. And what I like to see in a horse like this that did not run as a juvenile, which, by the way, from a Derby perspective is important to me. I like that seasoning. I like a horse that runs as a juvenile. Since he did not, I want to make sure he behaved like a mature 3-year-old, professional, composed, poised, and he was. He won those races, I felt he had more in the tank. However, a very important factor here. In those 2 races, he had Lasix. This race, he will not have Lasix. Sometimes Lasix is exceptionally or extremely instrumental in the horse's performance. You have to keep that in mind. It's something we don't know. Did he demonstrate that talent because he's got raw ability? Will he take a step back because he doesn't have Lasix as part of, his makeup being administered to him? Because, it helps. Because, when a horse, the pounding of a racehorse racing at 37, 38, 40 miles per hour, going this distance, propensity to bleed. And if, it just changes. So Lasix helps all. But when you come off some horses could take a step back. What else do I have on him? The talent's there. Dangerous contender, sitting a real good pace. So if the horses go out, who I feel have the speed to get out, run well, I think Grande is going to be in a tracking, stalking position. And that's where I trust not only his pedigree, but I trust Dylan Davis. So that nice trip could be worked to his advantage. And I think he's dangerous. And of course, this is Mike Rapoli. And Mike Rapoli, Todd Pletcher, they would want nothing more. And for this horse to win this race and get a ticket to the Kentucky Derby. So keep that in mind with Grande. Grande made my handicap, as you can hear from what I'm saying. He's listed as my third choice, but very close to my second choice. But in my crazy way, in my decisive ways, I always have to have the precise order. But no doubt, win contender, no doubt be using him in my exactest triples, almost all of my wagering. Because if he can run without Lasix, I know he's capable of running a big race here. So I got to use him. Business decision on whether I use him in my bigger tickets or things like doubles and pick threes, but he's likely going to be in my pick 5 because I will not allow him to beat me. All right, let's go to the 8-horse Passion Rules. Good name for Mr. Sette because I tend to be one that is passionate about everything he does. Passion Rules, got to respect the Brad Cox stable, comes into the race unbeaten, 3 for 3. Let's go to my notes. 3 for 3, can't argue with success. However, first time in stakes competition. And not often do you see Kendrick Carmouche, who's the listed rider for Brad Cox. Last work for the race at Churchill Downs, sharp breeze at 59-2. Cannot argue with his winning success, and you can't argue that that workout is an indication that this horse is fit and ready to go. But I see this colt as only a threat to hit the board underneath. Here's why. In a few races, let me rephrase this. If others who I have higher regard for do not fire their best and they falter and this guy improves, then yeah, he can hit the board, but he would have to run his career best buyer to do so. Because his buyers, and you can even go to Thorograph or Ragasins or whichever, he needs to run faster. So he'd have to run a career best. Others would have to falter. And if you want a good indication, because this is Brad Cox, watch the board. Here's a horse that's unbeaten. If he's up there at robust odds, you got to understand that there isn't a lot of smart money or robust wages on him. But like I said, to me, for everything I just said, I need to see him compete at a higher level against stakes competition before I wager big money or lots of money on him. If I'm going to use him, he's my secondary superfectas. All right, let's move forward to the race, to horse number 9, Bear Claw Necklace. I'll be rather brief. It's hard for me to be brief. I'll be briefer with this guy. I'll be, for lack of a better term, what is that? Succinct. Okay? Bear Claw Necklace. Clearly an outsider from Saffie Joseph. If Saffie Joseph somehow pulls this off, like he did with Lord Miles, but I liked Lord Miles that day. If he pulls this off, I'd want to do an investigation, at least wonder how he was able to pull it off. I don't like him. He had Lasix in his last start. He won't have Lasix here. inferior speed ratings across the board. He just looms to be outrun here, cut below, has shown speed in his races. I hope he goes out and creates the pace that I think is going to happen. Sort of be a rabbit, but late in the later stages in the race, if there's a horse that you're going to see that's going to fold, if he's up early, it'll be this guy. If I could go to the window and bet a horse who I think may run last, it could be him. So, in my opinion, the 9, I would eliminate from wager considerations unless you're born on September 9th and that's your thing, 9-9 or whatever, but I don't play numbers. I don't play names. Look, I love my kids more than anybody and anything on the planet. Samantha and Geo Jr., my son. If there was a horse in this race named Samantha, this or that, and had this type of form, I couldn't play it. So I don't do that. I don't invest my money with hunches and gimmicks and names and numbers. I got to like the horse. Let's go to the 10. McAfee. Had some interesting findings with McAfee. All right. McAfee is lightly raced. Ran twice as a juvenile. He's making his 4th start. So twice as a juvenile, once as a 3-year-old, and ran well in both starts as a juvenile at Churchill Downs. It's Richard Dutrow, so keep that in mind. A second entry in the race, because he's got Captain Cook, who's highly regarded in this race. So stablemate to Captain Cook, Richard Dutrow, Eric Cancel. Now, Eric Cancel is a rider on the NYRA circuit that I like. You know why? Yeah, he doesn't have the resume of the obvious leading riders. But Eric Cancel is a gutty rider that he shows flares of brilliance and the dramatic at times. And he cares. And obviously he wants to do his very best with the rest of the country watching the Grade 2 Wood Memorial. So I like Eric Cancel on this horse. I consider an upgrade from the other jockeys that have been on him. But in this last in the Gotham, just a titanic disappointment. He didn't get much action at the window, but because he was promising as a juvenile, I just thought he should have shown a lot more in his first race at 3. So upon studying some more, and I trust the barn, I gave him a pass for that race. I do like the stretch out here. I see him as a potential live long shot. He didn't make my top 5, but he's 6. And when you make the Sette grade and you're in my precise top 6 in a field of 12, that's respect. Because my process is a very stringent process. So between Cancel being new, an excuse for his last, the son of cloud computing won the Preakness for Chad Brown that year, an Uncle Mo mare. I think this horse is going to become better. And I wouldn't be shocked if this horse hit the board, because I expect the pace and I feel that this guy is going to be flying late. So watch the board, and I'm using the 10 in many of my deeper gimmicks, because I would not be surprised if the horse showed a much greater improvement. And I'm okay with you off track from his first race at 3. The 11 is Statesman. Got some interesting points to make on this guy and many more on the bottom horse. So get your pen ready or store it upstairs, because I make points that maybe you haven't heard others make before. At least I think so. Some will be similar, but I make other points. Statesman. Now, this guy looked impressive in film review, especially in his last two races. He showed the type of acceleration that you want to see in a racehorse when asked. He really, I said, it was a wow moment. I liked him and the acceleration he showed. I do like Samuel Marin. I mentioned him in one of the other races. I got to know him well at Monmouth, down in Jersey Shore. He's almost like a jockey like Walter de la Cruz. He cares. He gives it his all, and he's developing. So I like Samuel Marin because he's not winning races at Tampa by mistake. He's become a solid rider. However, and he returns here for Shug. We talked about Shug McGahee on another entry. I trust Shug, veteran, well-respected trainer, Kentucky Derby winner with Orb that year when Orb won in the slop. I believe Orb won the Florida Derby. Correct me if I'm wrong if he didn't, but I know Orb was Shug's horse, and he won the Kentucky Derby, and what a close that year in a very sloppy Kentucky Derby. But so Shug knows how to point horses in the right direction, and I do not believe he would have brought him from Tampa if he didn't think he was ready to run. However, important factor, Statesman took 4 races to graduate, and his last was a non-stakes, it was an optional claimer for $75K. He looked damn good winning the race, but also his last 2 races, he had the magic and the potential need for Lasix. He will not have Lasix here. And, you know, as a capper and a bettor, I can't tell you how often in spots like this. And I know I had the same concern with Grande for Rapoli, the 2 races on Lasix and no more Lasix. But Grande, I think, is a different level of talent. So this horse has showed me something. It is a son of Constitution out of an Empire Maker mare. I'm not concerned about an off track, but I'm concerned about class, and I'm concerned about the jump up to this grade 2 event. Impressed in race review, and I believe he will come in a stretch. And if he's okay without Lasix, he can be potentially dangerous too, especially if the pace is solid like I think it's going to be. So because of the unknown about the Lasix situation and the class disadvantage, I'm going to say he closes late for a share. I don't think he's going to win this race because others are simply more appealing to me. Did that sum it up? Now let's go to the bottom horse, who I'm kind of excited about for different reasons. And coincidentally, it's the last horse I'm going to be talking about on this show. I'm going to get a sip of water before I start with Omaha. All right, first, my notes, and then I'll elaborate further, but I want to make sure I make all the points because I wrote a good amount for Omaha. Remember my precise order, I didn't give it out yet, but here's what I see with this guy. 7 races, the most experienced in the race. Raul Mina knows him very, very well. In fact, he's been on him all 7 times. I like that. I like the relationship. And I like that Raul Mina, not a bad rider, is getting this stage, Wood Memorial, the Big Apple, 100 years of Wood Memorials run. And he's got a mount here. And I know he's going to try hard and work hard. His last in the Virginia Derby over at Colonial was to me, looked much better than it looks on paper because American Promise ran off at the end. So, A, the Colonial Downs was a 1-turn, 9 furlongs. I prefer him at 2 turns here. I think he looked a lot better to me in race review in that race than it looks on paper. Now, he was also beaten by Captain Cook in the Withers, okay? And we spoke about Captain Cook for a real solid barn and for everything I said about Captain Cook earlier on as I'm doing this deep dive. But this guy has been improving with his race experience. He's a son of Audible out of a Kitten's Joy mare. Down the road, not only I have no reservations about the distance, but down the road, I expect this horse to show some success on the lawn. I think this horse could run on any surface. Horse debuted on the lawn, but he could run huge here or falter here. But if he ran huge here, don't be surprised he gets a start down the road on the lawn because of that strong pedigree with Kitten's Joy in the bloodlines. But interestingly enough, in his last 2 races over the Big A, if you watch those races, all right, and you could go to them, the Jerome and the Withers, just watch him from the start gate. Look at his strides. He broke slow in both. And you need to consider that because you can't take for granted that a horse is going to be lethargic out of the gate every single time. It doesn't have to be a front runner to the first turn, but a good break or a sharp break is a lot different from a bad break or a slow break. He broke lethargically both times. You got to consider the break. The halves in the Jerome and the Withers were 49 and 50.2. And there was a 25 quarter. So he broke slow. And he was faced with fractions that were horrible to have the ability to close into and eat up a lot of ground. Yet he did. I think he gets a 46 and change half here. Who knows, maybe 45 high. But as much, the highest I think the half will be 47, which will be very accommodating to him, especially if he runs like I feel he will. So I want a decent break, not a fast, sharp, for good positioning around the first turn. And I trust the jockey's knowledge of the horse that he'll put him in a good position. Is it Irad Ortiz or Flavian Pratt? No, it's Raul Mina. But he knows the horse well because he's the only jockey that's been on the horse, and this horse is the most experienced in the race. This guy is a tough Virginia bred. Last November at Laurel, this is a race you need to watch because it really opened my eyes. I had a wow moment. If you watch that race, an optional claimer at Laurel, let me get the date for you, November 29th. So it's the weekend of Thanksgiving, or whatever the 29th was, in the mud at Laurel. He spots the field at 12, 13 lengths. Again, breaks bad. But now, if you watch him composed on the rail, ridden by Raul Mina, started to gain and show interest in the race. He could have folded and said, I don't want this today. It's muddy. I don't want this. But not only did he gain, Mina swung him off the rail. And he ran by everybody like they were standing still or like they were tied to the rail. And that's an optional claimer. And it's the only time he's been in the wet. If he gets a fast pace and it's wet, dreary, nasty, and Mina knows his horse and he gets a better trip and he breaks well, look out. This guy could make a potential huge exactor, and triple price. Because you know something? I think most cappers and most people who I've listened to so far regarding the Wood will say, yeah, he's a horse that can close. But that's all they've said. I think he moves forward. I think his experience is going to be fabulously to his advantage. If it's wet, it's to his advantage. If he's getting a fast pace that he hasn't seen, he ate up all that ground when he had no pace in front of him. I'm going to use this guy in my pick 3, my pick 5, and my double. And you know something? On the board, he's my second choice. Now, I think, to me, he's going to be an automatic overlay. I can't wait to see what the morning line is, but I know I'm getting a generous price on him because I know where a lot of people are going to be leaning towards in this race. He takes, if he runs his career best, because think about it, methodically improving on the Bayer scale. If he tops out after that one-turn Virginia Derby 9-furlong race, he's run 9 panels twice, hit the board both times. He goes forward here and runs his best and gets a good trip and breaks well. He's a big threat. I don't think you're going to get a lemon from this guy, to be honest with you. Is the post great? No. But I trust Raul Mina because what can happen, last year in the Wood Memorial, Society Man, he didn't have a good post, and I loved him. 106-1, he was the 11 post. So he's out of the 12 hole here. He's going to have to get into good striking position, and he needs a good trip. And there's going to be mud and dirt and gook. But you know something? He's proven that he don't mind that. Watch his race at Laurel. He took dirt in his other races on dry surfaces. But the horse relished the opportunity to gobble up ground. I mean, Raul Mina was filthy at the end of that race. Watch the race. So I like this guy. And, wouldn't it be something if back-to-back years, remember Lord Miles' hit show 2 years ago with Dreamlike, huge price. I'm talking 59-1. Had them both. Had all 3 horses that hit the wire together. Last year, Society Man. And remember on the show talking like this. I said, everybody, I love this horse. I think he's going to make his presence felt and be a big number. I thought he was going to be 30-40-1. He went off 106-1. He hit the board. This guy, if he hits the board, if he wins, I'm going to make a lot of money. And if he hits the board in an exact or a triple, I'm going to make a lot of money. Now, what's my precise order? Because of the class, Chad Brown, and for everything I said about Hill Road, I got to be decisive. My precise order was Hill Road, Omaha, Grande, Captain Cook, and Rodriguez. Now, remember the horses I talked about using underneath? The 10 could be a big price too. So if you didn't take notes, rewind and go back to what I said about the other horses, because this is the big granddaddy race on the day. I hope I hit all 4 races. But this Wood Memorial, and I'm confident I have a good shot at nailing these 4 races. I'm always confident. What handicapper wouldn't be in his work? But in this race, for everything I shared, 6, 12, 7, I have a lot of respect for. By default, I'm using all 3 in my pick 5 because I think they all could win. I respect Dylan Davis up for Todd Pletcher, going for Rupoli. everything I just said about Omaha, and of course, Chad Brown's horse. But let me close out by saying it's important to remember what I said about Rodriguez. See, I've been through so much. When you've gone through the trenches like I have, and every race is approached differently. Rodriguez is the type of horse, and I'm not going to repeat myself because that'd be redundant, but the reason why I'm going to cover Rodriguez, maybe in a separate wager, because if the others don't get out, and if I don't get the pace, like I said, sloppy day, he could wire the field on the front end. And I'm not going to watch that and tear up all my tickets. At least I'll have that. Do I expect them to be pressed? Here I go, I'm going back. So just keep in mind everything I said, please, because that's my approach to this race. I'm not kissing all the girls. I'm not kissing or hugging all the boys because these are boys here. My point I'm making is, as a capper and a bettor, I'm being prepared for circumstances that are beyond my control. If I'm right, like I was in the Arkansas Derby, precisely right, you guys watched the show? 45-hour and change exacta, and it's exactly the way I said it. That's a beautiful thing when you're precisely right. I knew Speed King was going to be a major problem for Cornucopian. I thought Cornucopian, his lack of experience will show, and that came true. Cold Battle, I thought, was a horse that hit his ceiling. Nice horse, a lot of heart, but hit his ceiling. And that left me with Sandman and Publisher, and that's why I crushed the race. So I'm hoping to crush this as well. So there you go. Done. 4 races. Mr. Sette, what did we run? About 2 hours? You know what? Stay tuned for so much more. Thanks for watching. If you completed the whole 2-hour process, I love you. Go ahead and watch John's show. He touched on the Gazelle and he touched on the Wood Memorial as well. So much more to stay in tune with. Stay tuned for my 6-race precise order handicap, taking 3 monster races from the Santa Anita card and 3 monster races from the Keeneland card, which cover, of course, the Santa Anita Derby and the Keeneland Bluegrass Stakes. Enough is enough. I'm out of here. Thank you so much for coming to Past the Wire TV. God bless you. God bless your families. And what do I always say? Let's go get them. Peace out.
This is important, so you're going to want to remember it. If you're a cat and you want to become a lion, you're going to have to lose your taste for rats.
Hey, Sure Bet Coffee. Put that giddy up in your cup. That giddy up in your cup. Sure Bet Coffee.
The legend himself, Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
You're watching Past the Wire TV, presented by Am Wager.
Tracking trips. at Past the Wire. There is no better time than now to join and ride with this clan. We'll be your second set of expert trained eyes. We ain't gonna buy you a fish. Sure, we'll give you some, but more importantly, we'll show you how to fish and make you a better. CAWs, sharks in the water, no problem. We'll go against anybody, and we have the track record to prove it. Big days, big pools, and select days all year long. We'll outplay them all. Looking for an ace? You're in the right place. Want to find that diamond? Be with us. Want to know more? Just ask a member or visit us at pastthewire.com and check out the tracking trips page. Nobody does it better.
And here's Tama in the final stages. The Santa Anita Derby goes to Tama. It's Tama, absolutely terrific, winning Malibu by 4 widening lengths.
Remember, the older you get, the better you get. Unless you're a banana.
It's The Wire TV, your #1 source for horse racing news and interviews, handicapping analysis, betting insights, and more. As The Wire TV covers the biggest races at the best tracks.
Garnet and Luis Saez to win the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga.
The Grey Wizard is absolutely flying. Champagne won. The Grey Wizard. Oh, it's very close. Leave it to the judge.
Like, share, and subscribe to Pass the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.
Blood. That makes you related. Loyalty. That makes you family. Nobody does it better.